Okay, so are you ready to like jump into a topic? Um, One that is like near and dear to my heart. We're gonna get into the power of play,
Oh, awesome.
but not just like any play, right? We're
Right.
talking about the kind of play that like lets kids be kids, that kind of lets them explore their world and, learn in ways that textbooks just can't really teach.
It's amazing how something as simple as like letting kids follow their curiosity can unlock so much potential.
Absolutely. And, we've got an amazing guide to kind of like help us unpack all this today. We're going to be exploring the work of Kevin Steinhardt.
Okay.
Now, he is an award-winning elementary school teacher, and he's been making some serious waves with his innovative approach to play-based learning. In fact, he's been recognized as a Golden Apple Award recipient
Wow.
and even a South Carolina State Teacher of the Year candidate.
Well, it sounds like he knows what he's talking about then.
Huh.
What I think is so impressive about his work is that it's not just based on these anecdotal observations that teachers often have. He's actually partnered up with researchers from Clemson University and Long Island University to really dig into the data and see how unstructured play impacts things like academic performance, behavior, and even mental well-being.
And the results, I mean, they are pretty astounding. We're talking about schools that have gone from below average to excellent just by incorporating more unstructured play into their curriculum.
Mm.
And get this, research from Long Island University has actually shown that Play Club participants have seen a significant improvement in their standardized test scores in both math and reading.
That's huge. That makes you wonder how something that seems so simple and, well, dare I say fun, can actually lead to such tangible improvements.
Right. So before we kind of like get too far ahead of ourselves, I think maybe we should take a minute and just define what we mean by unstructured play. What sets it apart from, structured activities or screen time?
Think of it this way. Structured play is kind of like a guided tour where you have a set itinerary, and there's someone kind of, there telling you what to see and do. Unstructured play is more like if you were given a blank map and you have the freedom to explore kind of wherever your curiosity takes you.
So it's about giving kids agency and autonomy in their play. They get to choose what they want to do, how they want to do it, who they want to do it with.
Exactly. And that freedom, I think that's where the magic happens. It allows kids to tap into their innate creativity, problem-solving abilities, and even their social skills.
It's not just about letting kids, run wild and burn off energy. There's a real developmental purpose behind it.
For sure. And it goes beyond just the cognitive benefits. Unstructured play also plays a really crucial role in developing emotional intelligence, resilience, and empathy.
And now I know we mentioned Kevin Steinhardt's Play Club earlier. Can you tell us more about this initiative and how it's been implemented in schools?
Yeah, so Steinhardt, he recognized that a lot of schools, especially elementary schools, they were becoming way too focused on academics and standardized testing. And this often came at the expense of things like recess and free play. So he actually created the Play Club as a way to carve out this dedicated time for unstructured play during the school day.
So it's like a scheduled recess,
Yeah.
but with an emphasis on giving kids complete freedom in their play choices.
Exactly. And there are no organized games, no adult-led activities, just open-ended space and materials for kids to just explore and create their own play experiences.
It's amazing to think that something as simple as just adding, dedicated playtime could have such a transformative impact on a school. Can you give us some specific examples of the results they've seen?
Oh, absolutely. One of the most striking findings was actually the huge decrease in office referrals for behavioral issues. At one school that implemented Play Club, you know what? They saw an 80% reduction.
80%.
80% reduction in office referrals.
That is incredible. It really highlights the power of play in helping kids regulate their emotions and develop those, very important social skills.
Absolutely. And I think when kids feel calmer and more connected, it just creates a much more positive and productive learning environment for everyone.
Right. We've been focusing on the, social and emotional benefits, but what about academics? Didn't you mention that Play Club participants actually showed an improvement in their standardized test scores?
Yes, that's right. And this is actually one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that supports the power of unstructured play. So researchers from Long Island University, they found that students who participated in Play Club actually scored significantly higher on standardized tests. And this was in math and reading compared to those who didn't.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because we tend to think that, more time spent drilling facts and figures would lead to better test scores. But it seems like giving kids the space to play and explore actually kind of boosts their academic performance.
That's right, and there are actually a few possible explanations for this. Some researchers believe that unstructured play helps to develop critical thinking skills, problem-solving abilities, and just like a love of learning in general that kind of translates to better academic performance.
It's not that the play is like directly teaching them, the content that's on the test. It's more that it's helping them develop uh, the cognitive skills and the kind of learning dispositions that make them just better learners overall.
Exactly. And it also speaks to the importance of giving kids like a well-rounded education that nurtures their social, their emotional, and their cognitive development.
It's like we're finally starting to understand that, play isn't just this frivolous pastime. It's an essential part of how kids learn and grow.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just about academic success either. Play also has this profound impact on children's their mental and emotional well-being. And, in a world where anxiety and stress are on the rise, particularly among young people, unstructured play offers like this powerful antidote.
That makes sense. Play provides a very safe and natural outlet for kids to kind of process their emotions, work through some of those challenges, and build resilience.
Right, exactly. And it also helps them to develop this sense of mastery and competence. And that is so essential for building self-esteem and confidence.
We've been talking about the general benefits of unstructured play, but I'm curious to hear more about Kevin Steinhardt's specific approach. What are some of the key elements of, Play Club that have contributed to its success?
Well, I think one of the most important elements is the emphasis on child-directed play. Adults are there to kind of, facilitate and make sure everybody is being safe. But they don't dictate the activities or the outcomes. And this allows kids to truly follow their interests and develop their own ideas.
So it's about giving them that space and the freedom to, be creative and explore their own unique ways of playing.
Exactly. And another key element is the use of open-ended materials. So instead of providing, pre-structured toys or games, Play Club offers just a variety of loose parts, natural materials, and tools that can be used in a ton of different ways.
This kind of sounds a lot like the loose parts theory of play,
Yeah.
where kids are more engaged and creative when they have access to materials that can be manipulated and combined in tons of different ways.
That's right. It's amazing to watch how kids' imaginations just come alive when they're given this kind of open-ended play environment. They'll start building forts, creating these imaginative scenarios and even inventing their own games and rules.
It's like watching creativity kind of, unfold in real time. I'm also curious about the role of risk-taking in Play Club. We often hear about the importance of risky play for kids. But how does that translate into a school setting?
That's a really good question, and it's an area where Steinhardt's work gets really interesting, I think. So he doesn't shy away from the concept of risk in play, but he emphasizes the importance of, knowing the difference between risky and dangerous play.
So it's about finding that kind of sweet spot where kids can challenge themselves physically and emotionally, but without putting themselves in actual danger.
Yeah. You could think of it more as adventurous play
Yeah.
rather than just like reckless abandon. So it might involve things like climbing trees, building structures, or even some, playful roughhousing, but all within safe and supervised boundaries, of course.
This reminds me of that article we have by John Loebke called Risky Not Dangerous.
Yeah.
He makes this very compelling case for why, allowing kids to engage in these types of adventurous play activities is so important for their development.
He does, yeah. Lepke argues that risky play helps children to kind of develop a healthy understanding of their own limits. They learn to kind of assess risks and build confidence in their ability to navigate those challenging situations. It's almost like they're building this mental muscle for resilience and problem solving.
It is interesting to think about how something is, seemingly simple as allowing a kid to climb a tree or even build a fort can have such far-reaching implications for, their development.
It really highlights the power of play as like this natural and effective way for children to learn and grow. And it makes you kind of wonder, like, why have we strayed so far from this approach in our modern education systems?
That is a great question to kind of ponder as we move forward.
Hmm.
But before we, get too deep into that, I want to take a step back and talk more about Kevin Steinhardt's journey as an advocate for play. So he's not just like a passion teacher, he's also a dedicated researcher and advocate for play-based learning.
Yeah. He's not content with just implementing these ideas in his own classroom. He wants to see a systemic shift in how we approach education, and he's actually using research and advocacy to make that happen.
This is where those collaborations with, the university researchers become really important. Can you tell us more about the research he's been involved in?
Absolutely. Steinhardt has actually worked with professors at Clemson University on a lot of research projects that explore the impact of unstructured play on, child development. And his work has even been published in some pretty prestigious academic journals like Children, Youth and Environments and NSTA Science in Children.
Wow, those are some serious academic credentials. So it's not just anecdotal evidence. He's backing up his claims with solid research and data.
Yeah, and he's not just publishing in academic journal either. He's also been featured in some more popular publications like The Post and Courier and District Administration. And in these, he's advocating for the importance of play in education to a wider audience.
It's inspiring to see someone so passionate about, you know, play using their platform to make a real difference in the lives of children. He's truly a champion for the power of play.
He really is. And his commitment to this cause, it goes beyond just research and advocacy. He's actually currently pursuing a doctorate in education systems improvement science at Clemson University, which shows his dedication to creating lasting systemic change in the field of education.
Wow. It sounds like he's not just trying to, change individual classrooms. He's aiming to transform the entire education system.
Absolutely. He recognizes that implementing unstructured play on such a large scale, it requires us to address those systemic barriers. And that's what he's focusing on with his doctoral studies. He's looking at things like teacher training, funding models, even policy changes that could help pave the way for more widespread adoption of, play-based learning.
A big undertaking, but someone's got to do it. And Steinhardt seems like just the person to kind of lead the charge.
Oh, yeah, I agree. His passion, his experience, and his research background all make him like this really powerful voice for change in the world of education.
This is also fascinating. But I have to admit, part of me is kind of wondering, is it really that simple? Can we really just solve all of our educational challenges by, letting kids play more?
That is a great question, and it's one that we're going to explore a little bit further. But while unstructured play offers some incredible benefits, it's important to remember that it's not a magic bullet. It needs to be implemented thoughtfully and integrated into a more, holistic approach to education.
So it's not about throwing out all structure and just letting kids do, whatever they want. It's about finding that balance between freedom and guidance, between child-directed exploration and, those more intentional learning experiences.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And that's where the role of educators and parents is so crucial. We need to be thoughtful about how we create spaces and opportunities for, this unstructured play, how we support kids' play experiences, and even how we can connect those experiences to meaningful learning outcomes.
This kind of brings up a whole new set of questions and considerations that I'm, eager to unpack. But I think for now, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. So we've defined unstructured play, we've explored its benefits, and we've delved into Kevin Steinhardt's inspiring work as a teacher, a researcher, and an advocate.
It's been a great start. It lays the foundation for, us to have a deeper exploration of how we can integrate unstructured play into our own lives, our families, and even our communities.
I can't wait to continue this conversation. But for now, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss some of the practical applications of these ideas. We'll address some of the challenges and considerations that, come with trying to implement unstructured play in a world that so often prioritizes structure in academics.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm still kind of reeling, from everything we learned about Kevin Steinhardt and the power of unstructured play. It's pretty amazing how something so, seemingly simple can have such a profound impact on kids' lives.
It really does make you rethink some things, It challenges our assumptions about how children learn best.
Yeah.
I mean, we often think that more structure and, direct instruction are like the keys to academic success. But Steinhardt's work suggests that stepping back and letting kids explore those interests can actually lead to even greater learning and development.
It's almost like we're kind of rediscovering something, like a fundamental truth about childhood that maybe we've lost sight of in our, in our fast-paced, achievement-oriented world.
It's true. And I think that's what makes Steinhardt's work so compelling. He's not just advocating for, a change in teaching methods.
Yeah.
He's advocating for an actual change in mindset, like a shift in how we even view childhood and the importance of play.
It's a paradigm shift. But as with any paradigm shift, there are going to be challenges and pushback. Not everyone is going to be, totally on board with this idea of incorporating more unstructured play into schools.
Oh, definitely. There's always going to be resistance to change, especially when it comes to something, as ingrained in our society as our traditional education system.
So what are some of the barriers that Steinhardt has encountered in his work?
Well, one of the biggest ones is standardized testing. A lot of schools feel so much pressure to get those test scores up.
Right.
They end up prioritizing, things
Wow.
like rote memorization and drilling over those more holistic learning experiences that you can get from play.
It's like teaching to the test instead of like teaching for life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another challenge is just this misconception that play is, frivolous or a waste of time, that it could be better spent, on academics. Some people still view play as like the opposite of learning, when in fact it's such an important part of how children learn and grow.
It's like we've created this, this false dichotomy between play and learning when they're really two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, you have the logistical challenges. A lot of schools simply don't have the space or the resources to create dedicated play areas or to provide the kinds of open-ended materials that are really good for this kind of play.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially in like urban areas where schools are already overcrowded and under-resourced.
Yeah. And then you have teacher training. I mean, a lot of teachers simply haven't been trained in how to facilitate unstructured play or how to integrate it into the curriculum that they already have.
It's not just about changing the physical environment, it's also about changing the mindset and skill set of the educators.
Exactly. And that's where Steinhardt's work, as an advocate and an educator becomes so important. He's not just talking about these benefits, he's giving teachers these practical tools and strategies for how to incorporate it into their classrooms.
I imagine that's a big part of his work with, Clemson. He's not just conducting research, he's working with the teachers to help implement these ideas in, real-world settings.
That's right. He's developed workshops, presentations, he even has online resources to help teachers really understand that value of play and then learn how to create these, play-based learning environments.
That's huge, because even the most compelling research, it won't make a difference if the teachers don't feel equipped to put it into practice.
Yeah.
It's about bridging that gap
Yeah.
between research and practice, between theory and, application.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Steinhardt such an effective advocate for play. He's not just an academic, he's also a practitioner.
Right.
He's in the trenches, working with real kids, in real
Yeah.
classroom. So he knows what works and what doesn't.
He's got that combination of passion and experience and, research that gives his work so much credibility. He's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what inspires those other educators to follow suit. They see that it's possible to create these joyful, engaging learning environments where play isn't just tolerated, it's actually celebrated.
He's creating a ripple effect,
Mhm.
that spreads from his classroom to other classrooms, to schools, and hopefully to the entire education system.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it? To imagine a world where children are not just, taught, but nurtured, where their curiosity and love of learning are ignited through play.
It really is. It's a world worth striving for. But let's be realistic here. We're not going to transform the entire education system, overnight. So what can we do in the meantime? What are some practical steps that parents, educators, or even just, everyday folks can take to bring more of that unstructured play into children's lives?
That's a great question, and it's one that I'm always happy to talk about because it's empowering to know that we don't have to wait for, that big systemic change to happen to actually make a difference.
Yeah,
We can start right now in our own homes and communities, create more opportunities for play.
I love that. So let's get practical. What are some concrete things that listeners can do to incorporate more unstructured play into their lives or the lives of the children they care about?
Well, for parents, it could be as simple as setting aside dedicated time for free play every day. And I don't mean, scheduling structured activities like soccer practice or music lessons. I mean giving kids the time and space to just be kids, to explore, to use their imaginations to create their own fun.
So it's about resisting that urge to overschedule their time and allowing for some, unstructured downtime, even if it means, a little more mess or a little more noise in the house.
Yes, exactly. And it's about giving them those materials that encourage, open-ended play. And this doesn't have to be, expensive or fancy. It can be a cardboard box, some old clothes for dress-ups, or some natural materials like sticks and stones from the backyard.
It's tapping into that innate creativity that all children have.
Right.
And giving them the freedom to express themselves.
Absolutely. And another really important thing that parents can do is to model that playful behavior themselves, because kids learn by watching the adults in their lives. So if they see us embracing playfulness, having fun, they're more likely to do the same.
That's such a great point. It's not just about telling kids to play, it's about showing them, creating a family culture where, play is valued.
Right. And for educators, there are also a lot of things that you can do to bring more unstructured play into your classroom. Even if your school isn't quite ready to fully embrace, a play-based curriculum, you can still find little ways to kind of sprinkle it into your daily routines.
Like what? Can you give us some specific examples?
Of course. One simple idea is to just create like a designated play area in your classroom. Even if it's just a small corner with some open-ended materials, you could also incorporate, more movement and play into your lessons. Like you could use role playing to teach historical events, or even have students build models to demonstrate scientific concepts.
It's about finding creative ways to, integrate play into the existing curriculum without having to, sacrifice academic rigor.
Yeah, exactly. And another important thing educators can do is advocate for more recess time and more opportunities for free play at their schools.
That's a great point because sometimes it takes that collective effort, to create lasting change.
Yeah.
If enough teachers and parents voice their support for play, it sends a message to those school administrators and policymakers.
And beyond the home and the classroom, there are also things that communities can do. This might involve, creating more public play spaces, parks, playgrounds, nature trails. It could also involve, organizing community events that celebrate play, like play festivals, street fairs, or even just, neighborhood play dates.
It's about creating a culture where play is viewed as valuable,
Exactly.
an essential part of childhood, not just something frivolous.
And when we create a culture that values play, we create a world that's more joyful, more creative, and more resilient.
That's a beautiful thought. I have to admit, though, as much as we've been, praising unstructured play, a part of me still wonders, are there any downsides? Are there any potential, risks or challenges that come with giving kids more freedom in their play?
That's a valid question, and it's one that we should address. Because even the most beneficial things can have some downsides if they're not approached in the right way.
So what are some of the potential challenges that we need to keep in mind when it comes to unstructured play?
One concern that I've heard is that unstructured play could lead to, chaos, a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
They worry that if kids are just left to their own devices, they'll just run wild and they won't actually learn any valuable skills.
That's a fear that I've heard as well, especially from people who are, used to a more traditional structured approach to learning.
Yeah, but you have to remember that unstructured play doesn't mean no structure at all. It just means that the structure is more flexible, more child-directed. Adults still play a very important role in setting those boundaries, ensuring safety, and providing guidance when it's needed.
It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between freedom and guidance, between letting kids explore and making sure they're also learning and growing.
Exactly. And another potential challenge is just the issue of equity and access. Not all children have those same opportunities to engage in unstructured play. Some kids might live in unsafe neighborhoods. Some might lack access to outdoor spaces, or they might have parents who are just, too busy or too stressed to really allow for free playtime.
That's an important point. We need to be mindful of those systemic barriers that can actually prevent some kids from experiencing the benefits of play.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just highlights the need for us to have a more, multifaceted approach, one that actually addresses these inequalities. So this could involve advocating for more public play spaces in underserved communities, or providing resources and support to families who are having a hard time creating those play opportunities, and making sure that all schools have that dedicated time and resources for unstructured play.
So it's not just about promoting play in general. It's about making sure that every child has the opportunity, that they all have access,
Right.
regardless of, their background or their circumstances.
Exactly. And I think that's really where the conversation around unstructured play needs to go next. We need to move beyond just talking about, how great it is, and start talking about how we can make those benefits accessible to all children.
That's a powerful call to action. And it brings us right back to Kevin Steinhardt's work. He's not just advocating for more play, he's advocating for more equitable access.
And I think that's what makes his work so important. He's not just trying to improve the lives of individual kids. He's trying to create a more just and equitable world for all children.
That's a beautiful vision, one that I'm definitely inspired to support. But before we get, too carried away dreaming about that play-filled future,
Yeah.
I want to bring us back down to earth. We've talked about the benefits, we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about the need for equity. But what does this all mean for, our listeners? How can they take these ideas and apply them to their own lives and communities?
That's a great question and one that we're going to explore in more depth in just a little bit. But for now, I just want to leave our listeners with a couple of key takeaways to think about.
Yeah.
First and foremost, just remember that play matters. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's not something that we should just, try to squeeze in.
Right.
It's something we need to prioritize, make space for.
It's like we've been treating it as an afterthought. Like it's nice to have if there's time, when in reality, it's like the foundation of a child's development and well-being.
Exactly, and I think that shift in perspective is so important. When we see play as essential and not optional, it changes everything, from how we parent, to how we educate, to how we even plan our communities.
It's about understanding that play is not just about having fun. It's about developing those essential skills, nurturing creativity, fostering social and emotional intelligence.
And it's about giving children the freedom to explore, experiment, discover, their own passions and talents.
It's about giving them the tools to become those, lifelong learners who are curious and resilient and adaptable.
So what can our listeners do to bring more of that magic into their lives, and into the lives of the kids around them?
Well, as you said, it starts with prioritizing it, carving out that time in our busy schedules, even if it means, saying no to some things, and creating those environments that are conducive to play, both physically and emotionally.
Oh, and what do you mean by emotionally?
Well, I think it means, creating a space where children feel safe, where they feel safe to take risks, to make mistakes, and just be themselves without that judgment or fear of failure.
It's about fostering that sense of playfulness and curiosity, not just in the kids, but in ourselves as adults, too.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, we all benefit from play. It's not just for kids. It's a source of joy and creativity and connection for people of all ages.
So let's reclaim our right to play.
Yes.
Let's rediscover that, joy of exploration and experimentation. Let's let go of our need to, control and micromanage. And let's allow children the freedom to play their way.
And let's advocate for those policies and practices that support play, in our schools and our communities.
Yeah, because when we invest in play, we're investing in the future, a future that is, more creative, more compassionate, and more resilient.
And what could be more important than that?
Well said. We're going to take just a quick break, and we'll come back to wrap up our deep dive. And we'll leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. Well, we're back. And I don't know about you, but I am feeling pretty inspired after that deep dive into the world of unstructured play and, all the challenges and opportunities that kind of surround it.
It's definitely complex, but you know what I think is so heartening? The fact that there are so many passionate people out there, people like Kevin Steinhardt, who are working so hard to advocate for play and really, create a world where every child can benefit from its magic.
It's a good reminder that even with, all those systemic barriers and the societal pressures, there's still so much room for hope and positive change.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I need to focus now, on the solutions. What are the practical steps that we can take to actually make a difference?
So let's talk action. We've covered a lot. We defined unstructured play, we explored the benefits, we talked about the barriers, and we recognized the need for equitable access. But what does this all mean for our listeners? What can they actually take away from this conversation and apply to their own lives and their communities?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways is that play isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's not something that we should just, squeeze in when we have time. It's something we have to prioritize and make real space for.
It's like we've been treating it as an afterthought. Like it's nice to have, but only if there's time left over. When in reality, it's a foundation. It's a foundation of children's healthy development.
It really is. And I think that shift in perspective is huge. Because when we see play as essential, not just optional, it changes everything. It changes how we parent, how we teach, how we think about our communities.
Yeah, it's about understanding that play isn't just about, having fun. It's also about building those essential skills, nurturing creativity, fostering social and emotional intelligence.
And it's about giving children that freedom, the freedom to explore, experiment, discover their passions and their talents.
It's about empowering them to become, those lifelong learners, the ones who are curious and resilient and adaptable.
So what can people do, like can our listeners do to bring more of that magic into their lives and the lives, of the children around them?
Well, I think it starts with, like you said, making it a priority.
Right.
You carve out time, even if it means maybe saying no to some other things, some of those more structured activities or commitments,
Mm-hmm.
and creating those environments,
Mm-hmm.
the physical and emotional environments that are really conducive to play.
Oh, and what did you mean when you said emotional environments? Can you expand on that?
Well, I think it's about creating a space where children feel safe to, to take risks, to make mistakes, to just be themselves without judgment, without fear of failing.
It's about fostering that sense of playfulness and curiosity, not just in the kids, but in ourselves too, as the adults.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we all benefit from play. It's not just for kids.
Mm.
It's a source of joy and creativity and connection, no matter how old you are.
Let's reclaim our right to play, you know?
Yeah.
Let's rediscover that joy of exploration and experimentation. Let's let go of our need to, control everything and micromanage.
Yeah.
Let's just allow children the freedom to play in their own way.
And let's support it. Let's advocate for policies and practices in our schools or communities that actually support play.
Because when we invest in play, we're investing in the future.
Mm.
We're investing in a world that is more creative, more compassionate, and more resilient.
What could be more important?
I think you're right. So on that note, we want to leave our listeners with one final thought, something to kind of think about. As we've seen in this deep dive, play is so much more than just a way to pass the time. It's a pathway to a much richer and more meaningful life. So we want you to ask yourself, what role can play in your life and in the lives of, the people that you love? How can you create more space for joy, creativity, and connection through the simple act of play? We hope that this deep dive has, sparked your imagination and inspired you to really embrace the power of play. Thanks for joining us. Keep playing, keep learning, and keep that childlike spark alive.